Hello, everyone. Welcome here today with our show where we interview random guests about what they're doing. Today we have Linda, who we know as Dragon Rose, on Linda Hello. And Linda's been hanging around the Moira Press for a year and a half, maybe. We know her very well from the Course in Miracles study group that we do on Sundays from 1 to 2:30 Pacific time. If anyone wants to join us for the Course in Miracles, we do that every week. But the reason we have Linda here today is to talk about a special project that she's been working on. And every Sunday she is on YouTube and there's a watch party which people can go to. But anyways, let's talk to Linda. Linda, how's it going? How's your day going?
Very well, all things considered, I guess. I'm doing well. Thank you for having me on the show. I watch you guys usually something every week that you're putting out, and I really enjoy the guests that you have on. It's pretty wide variety of people. I'll say that.
Yeah, the crew at the Moira Press as astrologers, we just really require that people be themselves, and that's the only requirement for hanging out with us. And some of them know their charts and some of them don't. Do you know your sun, moon, and rising?
Yes, I'm Pisces Sun, Taurus Moon, and I'm Sagittarius Rising. And as you pointed out to me during our last watch party, it turns out that my uncle, the person that this project is about, his sun is exact same degree Taurus as my moon. I'm not that familiar or that good in the astrology. I mean, I pulled up the chart and looked at it, but I don't fully understand as like you would. What
Mm,
does that mean? I just found that very fascinating.
mm. Yeah, so for anyone who's watching, okay, so Dragon Rose is very into her Uncle Jay's work, and that's what she's carrying on with this project. We'll hear more about that. But her moon is at six Taurus and his sun is at six Taurus. And so we just found that fascinating that she resonates so strongly with his work and they happen to have the sun and moon at the same degree. So, Jesse, how would you make sense of that kind of connection?
Oh yeah, that's some pretty awesome synastry, right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, I think could say that you resonate with his field or his tone of life, or you both also have Mars and Aries, so that you share that as well. And so, but having your sun moon at the same degree would say that you emotionally are kind of highlighted when his life path is highlighted. So like because if even people say there's posthumous transits, which is his chart's still getting transits to this day, even though he's expired physically. Some people would say that, every year on his birthday, when the sun's, right back where it was on his natal sun, on that day, his soul and his path is highlighted, but your moon is highlighted that day, which you
Mhm.
would be feeling very emotional or, sentimental or something like that. And so, you might have a sentimentality about his life path and purpose that is rhythmically and repeatedly expressed, kind of thing. So,
Well, it's
Yeah.
funny. I go ahead, Jay-Z. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, well, I was gonna say that is yeah, kind of cool. And also it's not just you get emotional about it, it's like you're in tune with it, you know? And also that would be sextile your sun in Pisces as well. Do you know where your sun is in Pisces at the beginning or the end?
her son's at late Pisces, so it's not actually,
Hmm.
it's a sextile by sign,
Okay.
but it's not a sextile by degree. But yeah.
All right, right on. Okay, cool. Anyway, what were you gonna say, Linda?
No, I was just going to say it's interesting, knowing that it kind of plays into I think the whole reason why I took on the project. I was interested in a lot of these things back in my teens. I didn't know him then, really. I didn't know. I mean, I was 3 years old when well, he's 23 years older than me. And when he was ordained a priest, I think I was like 3 years old at that point. So it's like uh, he was busy. We would see him at weddings, funerals, those kinds of events. Matter of fact, he pretty much married most of the people within the family, and that's a pretty large family. He comes from six brothers and sisters. one brother and the rest were sisters. So it's a big family. And then they all have their families. And my grandmother was the oldest. So she was quite a bit. I looked at it yesterday. My dad was only a couple of years younger than his great uncle or his uncle, my great uncle, because that just was the difference in age when my grandmother had his or her children. And then years later, he comes along. I think he might have been the second to the last child. He was the last son. So, they were very close in age, but we didn't know much about him because he was always so busy. Yet my interests went into esoteric very early, in my teens. I was into the tarot and astrology and Edgar Casey, real big into. I wanted to go and see the Institute and everything, never made it there. He did. And so as when this book came out, and then I think it was written in 1998, when it came out, I was amazed to find that there were so many things that he had been doing that I was interested in as well. And now that I'm retired, I've circled back in and started studying those things again and getting back into my interest there. Life kind of gets in the way when you have children and a family. So now I'm back to doing that. And I reread his books, which brought me to the project that I'm on now.
So tell us about the project itself.
Basically, the books are out of print, and I have a friend who has a publishing company, and another friend of ours, asked me if we could maybe reprint it, but I don't know that I want to do that. I could get it reprinted by the company that did the originals, but I'm not in it to make money, and I don't have the money to put out there to do all of that. So I thought, well, with technology the way it is today, most people, other than you guys, don't necessarily read hardcover books. They don't read paper. They listen to books like I do. I don't have time to read, so I listen on digital books. So I thought, well, let me try this. I'll put out a YouTube page, YouTube channel, and right now it's mainly dedicated to his works, to his books, starting with the first book, which is called On My Way Home, and I'm reading the book couple chapters every week, and then I premiere it and do a little watch party on Sundays, every Sunday at 3. So if it turns out to be 15 to 30 minutes, probably max for anyone. So I'm going to have sometimes one chapter, sometimes two chapters. So I literally read it. I have the pages up on the book, up on the screen from the book. And if you're there, if you want to read along, you can. Hopefully, eventually, I'm going to try to put some of these audios together to make it a little bit longer. When I'm done reading it, then I'll tackle that. So it'd be like if you want to come over and listen to a part of it and then end it when you want to, instead of chapter by chapter by chapter. But I wanted to share his life because that's what the book was about. He wrote it to share his life with his family because he had a huge family. I think 194 nieces and nephews, and people that just didn't know him and know what his life and his work was about. So this was his tribute to us. And then from there, he went on to write 5 more books, extending on some of this. Some of the books are very much into his life as a priest at oh my gosh, I'm blanking out on the name of the church. It was a big church downtown Detroit, and it's very, very caters to a poor community. So I think that was his life's work, is dealing with the poor. I think most Catholic priests deal with the poor, but he would refuse rich uh, churches. He didn't want that. He wanted to work with the poor. And in particular, he wanted to work with the Hispanic poor. And that is revealed in the chapters of his book as to why he dedicated his life to doing that. So I just wanted to share it. I wanted to share it with anybody that might be interested. A lot of my friends, you guys included, are into, esoteric kind of things. And I thought, well, this guy was into this stuff in the 60s, 60s, 70s, 80s, back before, we think that half the stuff we are hearing is new. It's not. It's ancient. It's old. And what he's saying, I'm learning now. And I'm going, oh my gosh, he knew all of this stuff. So I just felt like it was a way to share it.
Yeah, I noticed because I've been going to the watch parties, and again, they're Sunday on YouTube, and you can look up Linda Hellow's. We'll put the YouTube how to get there in the text below this video. So Linda, share that with me in an email after this, and we'll put it in the text down below. So look below if you want to join those watch parties. But yeah, I noticed listening in the watch parties that this man is like a Catholic priest, but he's extremely esoteric. Like he studied handwriting analysis and like aura photography and like I don't know, Carillion photography, and like you said you don't think he'd mind if I talked about his chart, and I think I'll talk about it for only good reasons. He had Aries, Uranus and Aries square Saturn and Capricorn, which that was his generation. What I find really interesting about that is like Uranus and Aries would go its own way and be kind of revolutionary and like see new and different things. And then it squares the Saturn and Capricorn, which is extreme tradition. So it's like he had this kind of like inventive neo way of being that kind of also bucked up against tradition at times, but like that was in him, was to be very neo and modern but also highly traditional. So like what an interesting character as far as that goes.
Oh, it would have to have been difficult. I mean, to pick to pick a career, if you will, to be a Roman Catholic priest is you can't get much more traditional than that. And he came from a Lebanese family that's very, very traditional, to where they dedicated a son to the priesthood. They still, they did that. Even that seems so old to us when we knew that in history that was what people did. But no, they were very, very religious. And my uncle Tony, his older brother, was the one that they had thought would be a priest. But as it turned out, Uncle Jay ended up being the priest. And there's a whole story on how that happened in the book. And it's actually already been told in audio. So if anybody wants to know how that happened, it's pretty interesting because he literally had a voice, and it wasn't because he was mentally ill. He had a voice, and it literally told him, go ahead, try the priesthood, or not the priesthood, but go to that school, which is a school that you start out with if you're going to start out young as a priest. He had really still wasn't looking to be a priest. He was kind of fighting it. But when he finally resigned himself to that is his destiny, he was not traditional in that sense. And he was very much the radical outlier, as we like to say. He was very much bucking the system and doing things his own way and trying to find newer and better ways to do things. He did not, he took orders, he followed his orders just like he was supposed to, but at the same time, he questioned when something didn't seem right. He didn't just blindly follow it. So he to me led an exemplary life. And I know that when he passed away, I actually was sent a little piece of a strip of one of his garments he wore as a priest.
Hmm.
My family believed firmly that at some point he's going to be, made a saint or something. That I do not know. That's not been anything that I've been involved in. But I really think I think he is working through me. I think he's one of my spirit guides, and I think that sharing this story, to me, is very important, and I think he would very much approve.
Hmm. Yeah, with his sun on your moon, you could say he guides your moon degree, like that he literally his life path and purpose is part of you, in your path and purpose, and I think that's amazing. Yeah, with his chart like that, Uranus and Aries is totally a trailblazer and like would be like tr setting new trends and like bucking the system and all that kind of stuff. And I think it's so interesting the square to Saturn and Capricorn. I don't mean to reiterate that
Mhm.
aspect, but think about that. That is so like the most rebellious meets the most traditional, and like we rarely, I mean, that's his people born within his year had that, so he was kind of holding down that year's ethos of, like let's buck tradition or whatever. But also it's so interesting how successful he was. Jay-Z, what have you noticed from listening to the book, because you've been to a few watch parties as well?
Oh, well, for one, I'm really enraptured by the story itself, and all of the because he includes like all kind of little scenes from his life, and they're I mean they're obviously well chosen because they're building this story to try to help the audience get to know him better and why he made certain choices and certain glimpses into his life. So I find it's really, on the one, entertaining. And then on the other hand, also like kind of getting back to what you were saying earlier, Linda, how does it strike you that we are constantly like rediscovering the things ourselves? Like you're saying, these are like ancient knowledge, right? That's inherent in some of the things that he studied, and he is trying to kind of explain or entice us to get to know more about as well. But it's like, and then we learn them in our 50s and 60s, and then we die. Like, isn't that, I don't know. What do you think?
I think it's because I have the time now and I'm retired now that I can look back at these things in a different way. When you're busy in the middle of your life, you don't have time to do all of this. But what I find funny is, I don't know if I'd call it funny, maybe just people today, a lot of people, they think they're discovering something new. They think that they're sharing some new insights with you because we have the internet, because they can. So they think it's like, oh, I've discovered this new thing. And I'm like, it isn't new. And going back to him, he studied Eastern. He did yoga was a there's a joke that he makes, a little comment that he used to say. One of the things, and I remember this, I remember seeing him do this when I was a child, standing on his head. It was part of yoga, and he used to make a joke that he would be on his head in the morning before most people are on their feet. And he did all of that. He meditated and he did all of that and studied a lot, but he didn't really it took 6 years before he finally had, and it's coming up, not this coming Sunday, but the next week. It's the big one is coming up where he finally has a breakthrough and he has visitations every day for 40 days. And I'm not going to explain too much, go into that. You want to see what he learned. This is where he gets the glimpse into his reincarnation. He was very much a believer in reincarnation. He
Wow.
didn't he didn't speak about it from the pulpit, but he did mention it when he did Silva mind control. We call it Silva mind control. They call it Silva method of relaxation. There's a whole long thing because when you say the word mind control, people misunderstand it. But I took the course and he talked about reincarnation there. And the church never censored him or told him to stop. Or, matter of fact, he was teaching the course from within the church he was the head of the head priest. So he was teaching nuns and priests about this course, and he mentions the reincarnation aspect. And if you look at some of the quotes in the Bible, it really leads you to think, well, why would they ask Jesus that, or why would Jesus say that, or if there wasn't something to reincarnation?
Hmm.
It just isn't something that you're going to learn from mainstream church because I think it's again part of the control, and not to be say anything bad, Uncle Jay, but the church is very controlling. And if they were to tell you that you could do what you want in this life, you're going to pay in the next, well, can you imagine how some people would take that? They would do what they want in this world, thinking, oh, we'll make up for it later, not realizing they will make up for it later. I've always believed in reincarnation, and my uncle was a very big believer in it. And he'll tell you more about that next week, next Sunday.
Well, you're really good at piquing the curiosity of the viewers. That's a thing you're supposed to do.
Well,
I really want to hear about his visitations for 40 days because like that numbers in the Bible, the 40 days where Jesus goes off for 40 days. All right, sorry, Jay-Z.
Well, I think that religions always have like an exoteric and an esoteric side
mhm,
to them. And the exoteric is for the 90% of the people out there, or whatever the percentage is. And then the other is for the sliver of people who want to know more. And
mhm.
there always is that other side to a religion, the inner circle, the secrets. And it's interesting that, yeah, I think this mind control method was are you saying it was to teach you how to control your own mind, not
Yes.
to control the minds of others?
Exactly. It was teach you how to relax, how to meditate, how to make things. My dad and I took the course. I could not find my book, all these moves from Michigan and everything. I lost it, but I found my dad's certificate, and it's actually in one of the videos where I kind of show it on the screen that he graduated. I could not, I couldn't do it back then. In the 70s, my mind was all over the place. My mother had passed away. Um, I just couldn't concentrate. I just couldn't do it. I was like ADHD. Now I retook it online, bought it from Audible or whatever, and retook it, and I try to practice it. Just it teaches you a lot of methods and things to calm you down, and it's been around well all that time. I took it in the 70s. Jose Silva, they're still selling the course. You can go and get the books and everything. So he taught it for I think 15 years, and and he would insert his own beliefs in things that weren't necessarily what the church put out there, and there were a few priests that didn't like it. There was a few that reported him for heresy. He laughs it off. If you go back to the videos, you'll see there was a movie made, a documentary made in 2004, and they put it out on YouTube for free. And that's kind of how I got some of my information, was because the people that put it out gave me permission to use anything I wanted out of that documentary. So I've been using a lot of that, and I really highly recommend, because you get to hear him talk. You get to see him. It isn't me reading a book. You get to actually hear it from his own lips. A lot of what I'm going to read and what I've already read, he actually says in this
So that documentary is
documentary.
called Father J.
It's called Light, Father J. Samonie documentary. So it's Light colon Father J. Samonie documentary.
Okay,
You
we'll
can
have to
just,
put that in the links below, so that'll
yeah,
be down below as well.
yeah,
Okay.
I'll send that to you too. I really, really recommend
He's
that.
kind of a cutie, honestly.
Yeah, I've had other people say that too. I guess,
I know
I
he's your
guess.
uncle, so you can't say that, but I'm just like he's kind of just like his personality's kind of cute. Like I like the book where just how he talks. He's kind of like I don't know, he's kind of like lilting and I have to say like he's really into psychology. Like that's why I was like I wanted to look at his chart because I was like he's really into handwriting analysis and then he gets really into like these other things and it's like it seems like he really took to anything that would analyze the human mind. And that's where I find he's very akin to the astrologers too, is like he's kind of an analyst of the human-minded spirit. Do you find that about him?
I do, I do. And he was very smart. I mean, he was very educated, and it surprises. I mean, I guess I never thought about all the education that a priest, or how many years they have to go to school. But it isn't like they just walk in and say, "I want to be a priest today." It's a lot of learning, and then continues to learn. And yeah, he could pick up languages. He played by ear. I remember the organ that he had at my grandmother's, being the oldest of the sisters, was the matriarch. Okay, so he would go stay with her when he was taking off time, and he had this beautiful organ, and so she had it at her house. Of course, I played it a little bit, but not much, because heaven forbid I would break something on my uncle's organ. But he taught himself how to play that. He taught himself guitar. He taught himself everything he learned art-wise. He taught himself to paint. And that's also in the audios in the book. He taught himself to paint, and he had shows. He had two big shows and sold all of his paintings. I luckily ended up with about a dozen of his paintings. Some I'm keeping, some I'm not sure what I'm going to do with, but some I've got up on the walls. He had his stuff in a little shop in I want to say Northville, Michigan, and the girl who inherited the shop and ultimately ended up owning it. I guess she had reached out. I learned all this through research, reached out trying to find families of all these pictures that were left behind. And rather than toss everything out, there was books, there was these paintings. I reached out to her and said, do you still have them? She's, oh my gosh, you want them? Yes. And, I had paid the shipping and she sent it all to me. So that was very cool. I was able to get a lot of books that are not in print, and I gave them away. And the paintings, I'm not sure again what I'm going to do with it, but he taught himself all of that. And he didn't have any one type uh, style, if you will, in painting. He was kind of eclectic in his styles. But it comes out in one of the upcoming episodes, or it actually was mentioned already before, where he was told by a couple of psychics, and then later he was told in one of these 40-day visits, that he had been the painter Velázquez, Spanish painter Velázquez, reincarnated. And that again comes up in the story. The 40 days thing is pretty interesting, because each day he has a different adventure. But unfortunately, he doesn't go into all the detail that I really want.
Mm.
He's got written, he says he's written and has got tapes on some of the things that he learned, but he couldn't release them at the time because he was told not to by
Mm.
his guides. And I was hoping that somewhere in the later books he would share a little more of that, but I don't really think he did. And I've tried to find anything that's left. I've got one uncle who was married to his sister, my Aunt Jackie, was still alive. And I checked with my cousin, but she hasn't gotten back to me to see if there's anything there that might have been left over from him. And I think there probably is, but I don't know if I'll be able to get a hold of it. If I do, then I have to decide, would I be willing to release any of it? And I don't think I would. If he wouldn't, then I probably shouldn't. Might not be a good idea. but it should be pretty interesting. I
That's
mean,
so interesting because it's like after someone dies, like, do you just like release their stuff and let them be posthumously like well known, or do you honor the privacy that they had while they were alive? And it's just like, I mean, you wouldn't release their journals, but I mean, like a beautiful painting they made. It's
oh
just kind of.
yeah, no, I've got his paintings, and I would, no, I mean, I'll be showing those in the upcoming, so you can see what I still have left, of the paintings, and some of it's actually in the book, in some of the books that I'll be reading, pictures of the paintings that he did. I'm
It'd be
not
cool to
talking
do
about
an
that.
art show of his paintings and then have the books playing.
I don't have enough paintings for an art show,
Oh, okay, interesting.
but I mean, no, there was things they told him that they told him not to share. So
Mm,
there's things about humankind, about the world, that those kinds of spiritual things that came from spirit, came from source, whatever you want to call it, through the Holy Spirit, through his guides, and he was told not to share them at that point.
mm,
So that's what I mean. I don't know if I should, if
mm-hmm,
unless he comes to me and tells me to, you
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
know.
Maybe he will. Maybe Andy, it's like the length of life calculation, Like it's some knowledge, but maybe it's the 10% knowledge that shouldn't be shared with the 100%. It shouldn't be shared with the 90% who wouldn't seek it out. So like it's only for the seekers or something. I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah.
I feel it'd be misunderstood. I feel it would be misinterpreted, twisted.
Yeah.
As it is so far, everything that I've been getting, any kind of feedback, has been positive. Like I don't have a big following. 30 subscribers, and most of them are like, my friends, people that know me, and everything is calm and cool, and no haters. I don't want any of that, and I don't want a notoriety on his life that could bring that out. And there's a lot of
But
that in this world.
well, we can't worry about the haters too much because we've got to get this out to the lovers. So if you are a lover of the Father J story, the way to get hold of the videos is to find Linda Hello on YouTube and then subscribe, and then you'll be alerted of all the new videos. Because you're on book one, but there are 5 books, and you intend to read them all, right? And then maybe
Yeah.
you make supplementary things, and you never know. I mean, it's like the Father J saga is just beginning.
Yeah, there are actually 6 books, and
Oh,
so I'm only on one. There's 5 more, and it's a labor of love. Obviously, I don't have the manuscript, so I'm literally having to. Surprisingly, the books were well made. I mean, I've had to bend them like this and hold them down on the scanner, and then and then clean them up, and then that don't look, do it again. And when I put it back together, the book kind of goes back together pretty nicely. I've scanned
nice.
everything, the whole book so far, and those little what you see is where I've got markers. So I'm surprised because most books are so cheap. The back would have been splitting by now.
Okay, this
So,
is a dumb question. I'm going to ask it anyway. Were priests allowed to get married or no?
no, not in the Roman Catholic Church. And he did not agree with that, but that was the law. So a lot of things changed. It's like, and he brings that up in some of the chapters too about the council that and Pope John, I think John Paul made a lot of changes to the church, a lot that people didn't like, changing from Latin to English. Oh my gosh, a lot of the old timers hated that. They
Hmm.
wanted their Latin masses, and priests getting married was never changed. Maybe someday in the future it will be. But no, he was not. He had to make a choice between doing that, and he did have somebody that he was close to that, it was something he really had to, he went on retreat and he really had to think about, and he ended up, becoming a priest and
Wait,
dedicating
so
his
you
life.
can still have a lady friend, you just can't marry her.
Well,
A man friend, I don't
you're
know.
not supposed to do anything with them, but I don't, I don't know.
Really? That is
Romantic.
so
Anything
bogus, man.
romantic with them. Yeah, he had a lady friend and he had to disappoint with his decision.
Yeah,
You can
yeah,
hear
Repeatedly
that
ending.
episode about that.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
yeah.
a whole
That's
another.
It's rather sad, actually. I don't understand why they couldn't do both. I mean, but his life was very, very busy. He was, I mean, extremely busy. He was always had his fingers in this and that and the other, and
Mhm.
uh, yeah, he don't know that it would have, marriage might not have been a great option. Although the ministers and other sects of Christianity, other religions, they marry and they seem to be just fine.
Yeah, well, and it's like maybe part of the reason they can't marry is so they stay interested in the people in the church. Like it's like if you marry because you get like too closed off. I mean, I don't know what the rules around marriage are. I'm not like I don't even know much about religion in general. But so what? Let me ask you this: if you read his books, what is the general thing? or feeling that you get? Like, what do you learn or what happens to you as a human by reading his story?
Well, again, this initial book was written for us, for the family, to show us, give us an idea of what his life was like and what his ministry was like. So it's very much, kind of hops around, but it's pretty much like, well, at this age I did this, at that age I did that. What I get out of it is that what I'm taking out of it, I guess, is his esoteric interests that align with mine and than I am the priesthood part of it. But at the same time, I find it very fascinating because he does talk about the different aspects of the priesthood. So between his being contrary and being a trailblazer, as you say, and being interested in things like reincarnation and Edgar Casey. He wasn't really into tarot and astrology and that kind of stuff, but he was into other things that aren't your normal mainstream. And the things that happened to him, he says it in his book, he says it in the documentary. He would have never say that it didn't happen. You could, no matter what would have come down from authorities, he would never disown what happened to him. He believes it in his heart and soul, and I do too, because I know him, the much as I do know him. But I don't ever, never would have thought he would be lying and making things up. He got nothing out of any of this. It
Wait,
started
so were
out
you at like barbecues with Uncle Jay?
I didn't get to socialize with him till we were adults, and I think I put some pictures in the in the first audio I did that was not reading. It was more or less introduction. He used to come to Vegas. His my aunt Rose, his sister, lived in California, and the rest all lived in Michigan. They had money, so she would fly all of them out to California. They'd spend some time with her there, then they'd come to Vegas for a week. I moved to Vegas. Luckily, he was still alive then, and half of them were still alive. So every time they came to Vegas, I would join him, and we'd go hang out at the casino. And he had another priest, Dave Brock, I think his name was.
God invented the casino.
They would go out. They didn't wear their collars. They just went out and had a good time, at the beach
Well,
or at the park, laid by the pool, whatever. So I got to know him then. We talked more then. The last time I went to church, if you will, last time I had communion was because he had held mass. The last time they came to Vegas, they had rented a house so they could all be in one house together instead of staying at Harris. And he held mass in the den of this house, and we used what I call Syrian bread, what you all call pita bread. I was raised with it calling Syrian bread. We had Syrian bread for the host and wine for the wine, and we had communion, and we had mass. And that was the last time I did that. And his philosophy, I says, I haven't been to confession in 20 years. He didn't care. And he said this to my sister too. She recently said she remembers him saying, a sin is a sin if you believe it to be a sin. I mean, there's just because there's rules written down, those rules are not hard in stone as far as in his mind. So he didn't care. He didn't question anybody. He didn't look at you like, are you sure you need to do the communion? Or did you go to confession this week or anything like that? He was just so laid back in that respect. And I felt good doing it. I didn't feel like, oh, I'm doing something wrong and God's going to smote me.
wait, do you think he listened to rock and roll?
I don't know. I really couldn't tell you.
I just want to
I
know if he seems like kind of a rocker, like he's a little bit of a thrasher, and I just want to know like how much, you know.
yeah, we didn't go dancing. We didn't go to any clubs or anything like that. So, but we
Okay.
did gamble, and I don't really. We had dinner, but I don't really recall him drinking. He wasn't much of a drinker, as it said in one of the chapters. He was filling his cup with the church with the wine at mass, and he was getting tipsy after doing so many masses. And he
Uh,
goes to the head priest at the church. He says, "Father, I can't. This wine is too strong." And he said, "Well, tell me what you're doing." Well, I poured in, and was you fool? You only pour a little bit in. You don't need to pour a whole cup. But I don't think he was that much of a drinker. But yeah, I get this, and then we communicated through email after that. And I told him things like, I kept them. I still have them. They weren't really long and lengthy, but I said I have a hard time calling him uncle. Called him Father Jay all my life, and I just had a hard time because it just didn't feel natural. And then he explained to me the difference. Because I'm family, it's okay for me to call him uncle, but he's called father by others because that's a sign of respect, just like a doctor Doesn't
So
like to be called.
confusing. Like, are you my father? Are you my uncle?
I know, I know. I still call him Father
I call
James
my
sometimes.
father uncle personally.
Well, now that's a different story.
I'm just kidding. But I will after this.
Yeah, anyway.
All right. Well, Jay-Z,
Well,
you got any questions on your mind?
yeah, I want to ask you guys if you think confession is like therapy, and the reason that like they had priests, just like astrologers, are kind of to be the therapists and advisors of the communities.
Hmm.
And that's why him being so interested in psychology is part what made him such an awesome priest.
Hmm.
That's a good question. I wouldn't be surprised if that's a big part of all priest training because really they are. They are psychiatrists in a sense, and they have to have some idea on how to deal with people because they hear some of the probably worst things you'd ever want to hear in a confessional.
It's probably pretty juicy in there. Like I kind of want to go into a confession booth just for a little, rock and roll. But yeah, well, no, I mean, I don't know. I think it is very therapeutic. Like expressionism is very therapeutic. Like it makes me think of last night I was well, I don't know how to say this without like traumatizing you guys, but I was like watching YouTube and like something came up on my YouTube that was kind of like gross. And I was like, what's this? And I watched it, and then there was like 30 videos like it, and I was like, ah, like I was just dying. But then I had to confess that had happened to me to my daughter and my boyfriend because otherwise I couldn't get it out of my head because I was just like, but once I confessed it, then I was like, oh my God, you'll never guess what I saw or whatever, which I won't repeat so you don't have it in your head. But the thing is like the confession really helped. And so that's an aside, but what I'm telling you is that I think confession itself is very therapeutic. Now, what the priest says in response to the confession, that is could be a spectrum of therapeutics. Like some priests are probably extremely wise and some are, but Father Jay comes across as extremely wise and real likable. Like I would like to confess something to him and see what he said.
Yeah, no, I wish he was still around. I know that him and Jorg's a lot like him. He's a rebel. He's always pushing the envelope, and I think the two of them would really get along good. But I'm like you. If something's stuck in my head, if I do or say or see something and it's stuck in my head, if I don't get it out, it'll stay there and it'll just roll around. So I tend to do the same thing. All right, this is what's going on. This is what I'm seeing, or this is what I did or saw.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, it feels so much better.
Yeah, and then you like off gas it onto the other person. Like, okay. Well, okay, so I think this is a perfect chat. We do have to wrap up soon, so I do want to make sure that people know. Okay, first of all, if you find Linda to be awesome, which she is, she's actually extremely wise and an elder in my world. You should come to the Course in Miracles on Sunday, which I'll put the link in that in this video too. It's open to the public and it's free, and we just read and study the Course in Miracles. So if you want more of Linda, come to that group. We've been learning from Linda for like a year and a half now. It's been really, really awesome. But okay, so Linda, tell us where can people find you for this?
Really the only place, I mean, I am on Facebook, but I don't, well, I'm on Facebook, whatever. Um, most of, for this, the only place I really have anything going on is with this YouTube channel. And if you look up Dragon Rose, there are several Dragon Roses have YouTube channels. So mine is Dragon Rose dash Linda Hello. And there's a space between Linda and Hello. So you'll find me that way. And I think if you probably just looked up Linda Hello, it would take you to Dragon Rose to that site.
That's Hellow.
Correct.
Okay. Interesting. Well, I'm looking forward to I go as many Sundays as I can. Sometimes I have to be at a fair or something like that, but I'm there in the chat Sundays at 3 p.m. I'm finding it really useful. I just do my beads and listen and like make comments when I do. Sometimes I pay my car or whatever. I'm just saying you can do things while you listen to the book. It's like, you don't have to be like at full attention. So what do you do while you listen, Jay-Z?
Well, actually, sometimes I'm usually cooking because it's 5:30 my or 6 o'clock my time. It's 3 o'clock your time.
Hmm.
So I like to have it on. Also, I do multitask as well sometimes because I'm hungry.
The truth comes out
And I
that
have to give
Jay-Z can
stories.
multitask. He's
I
changing.
can duo task.
Well, I think it depends on your cue, like which tasks are
Yeah.
appropriate to do together at which times. But yes, um, we've discovered in this episode that Jay-Z was lying about not being able to multitask. Just kidding.
Well, to be honest, surprisingly, not everybody understands YouTube and premieres and party or watch parties. I have a cousin who said something about he didn't want to interrupt me while I was reading the book, and I said, no, no. I said, so I can multitask too. I can do other things while I'm listening to myself. So yeah, it's pre-recorded, so the chat is just a lot of fun to talk about while we listen to what I've already pre-recorded. We can chit chat in the chat.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, you're part of the watchers of the watch
Yes, I'm a
party.
watcher.
Yeah, so if you come to the watch party and it's like listening to a book being read, but then you get to interact with people who are also listening to the book. So it's like it's almost like a book club, but no, and they're about 20 to 35 minutes, so it's not like a big chunk of your day, but Sundays at 3, it's like being read to,
Mhm.
like when you're in
Yeah.
preschool.
Yeah,
So
good.
all right, well, Linda, I want to have a face jam or two about this as well. I think
Okay.
constantly, for the year that you're doing this, we should be, a few times a month, we should be letting the crowd know what's going on because otherwise, how will they know? And so,
Sure.
we really appreciate you coming on to talk about it because I do think the Father J story is really of interest to the Moira Press people because they are esotericists and they are into spiritual things, and I think knowing his just his chart and listening to him would be like interesting to them. So, thanks for being willing to come on here and send me those links.
I will, and thank you for having me. And I think we should delve a little bit more into the astrology of this. I maybe I'll take some more time and try to put something together with the software that I have, but I don't have near the knowledge you guys
Well,
have.
if you think Father Jay would be okay with us looking at his chart, we could totally have you on another Tuesday, and Jay-Z and I could really take a look at his chart, and I think we would do it in a way that was honorable to Father Jay. We wouldn't say anything mean or rude about him. We would be talking about all the best of Father Jay. So, if you think he's okay with it, I would love to do that. What do you think, Jay-Z?
I'll
Yeah, that
check.
sounds awesome.
I'll check with him and I'll let you know, but I'm sure he'll be
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah, get out your Ouija board and ask him because we really want to know.
Oh no, I don't. I gave that up in sixth grade.
Okay, well,
All right,
do a
well,
direct connection. Like, go visit him at the Akashic Records and
There
ask him.
you go. There you go.
Okay.
All
All
right,
right.
guys. Thank
all
you.
right. It was great to talk to you.
You
All right.
too.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Yeah. Have fun on your date.
Okay, bye.
Bye.